Well, hello there, Lisa Calle. It is so wonderful to have you as my guest on Sewing in Slippers with Sue today. I have,
Thanks so much for having me.
oh, it's so good to have you. I've been such an admirer of you for so many years, and I believe we met years ago at a quilt show somewhere. And I've been
Yep.
following what you do, and I love your design style. I'm all about
Oh, thank
colors and I'm all about quilting it to death.
you. It's why we get along so well.
That's right. So, Lisa, tell me a little bit about what you've been doing since COVID and how you
Oh,
reinvented your business and what you're doing now.
yeah. So I think for everybody, COVID really changed the way we do business. That was supposed to be the year that I was literally doing at some kind of show or event every other week. And so when it hit, woo, it hit hard. So I had to transfer pretty much everything online, just as everyone else did, which required learning a lot of tech that
Yeah.
I didn't really need or want to learn. So I created a signature course called the Quilters Groove Design Academy, where I teach how I look at a quilt and I break it down into three simple steps
Hmm.
to design the quilting for. So that's been a huge hit, and it really is it's my favorite thing to teach. So that's an 8-week long course which I'll be launching again in September. And then I have my membership. So for those that wanted more, I was like, oh gosh, you want more? I don't know. So I created a membership in June of 2021. And it just got kind of a revamp. We changed the name, and it's now Quilters Groove Creative Design Society.
Yes.
And it is so much fun. I
Fantastic.
just am having a blast with it. I have great community. The community is amazing and supportive, and I just couldn't ask for anything better. And while I look at COVID and what it did, it really forced me to kind of come out of my shell and
Okay.
really put myself out there in a different way.
Okay.
So,
Now, you were teaching though at the shows, so you were all,
mhm.
yes. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was teaching at all the shows, but the video component of it, I had to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah.
And now actually I don't travel to teach anymore. And pretty much everything is virtual.
Yes, yes. So we have
Mhm.
very similar stories, and as many quilters do, I was a little bit ahead of the curve where we had started our online programs before COVID, just about a year before.
Mhm.
So I had that video experience and I had a couple of courses already made and out there. But we followed a very similar path. We have also done 6 courses and then opened up our membership. But where you are doing beautiful quilting designs, I do fusible applique. And it's all fusible
Mhm.
applique cut with our rotary cutter. So I was out there vending at all the shows and teaching, and then COVID hit. And luckily, we had already dived into that world of online classes and workshops and things. So it's been a blessing in disguise. It's kept me
Yeah.
off of the road and back here with my family, and I'm quite loving it. And you mentioned your community. Here,
Mhm.
Lisa, we have a fabulous community that is all focused on learning new applique techniques, learning new skills. So I think that where I leave off, that's where you jump in. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited to share with you that I have a new long arm and I cannot wait to learn from you. I've been in your membership for over a year now, just as a fly on the wall, just watching what you do. And I love what you do with your designs. We have a very similar style, and I love
Yeah.
others, and I love quilting a quilt to death.
Yeah.
I invited you to take a look at my Gradations project. And I sent Lisa some images of this Gradations quilt right here, the one with the Sobatik fabric. And Lisa had some fun with that and made us some videos. She did a design decision dilemma for me and took that quilt and is going to give us 3 options for quilting gradations. So I want you to stick around. I want you to watch all 3 options. And in between, we'll talk a little bit about them and what skill level they're good for and what you like about those different designs. And then in our chat here, we're going to put that onto Facebook because, of course, we're the only 2 on Zoom. But we'll put that on Facebook, where you can find information about the Gradations course, as well as where you can find Lisa's membership, so you can benefit from all of these design decision dilemmas and all the classes that Lisa has to offer. So Lisa, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to try here in the background quiet while you present to us your options for quilting gradation. I hope I
awesome. Well, we're going to cross our fingers. Well, first off, the quilt is absolutely stunning, and it has exactly what I like, a lot of that negative space to actually work with. So let's take a look at the first option that I came up with for quilting. This one I did for beginners. So fairly simple. So let's take a look. Let's hope our tech works.
Okay, you should be seeing just Lisa's screen up there, and I think it's good, Lisa.
Alrighty, so let's get started. So in this one, we're going to do some simpler quilting. So this would be like if you are a beginner and you don't know how to do rulers and you don't know how to do feathers or anything like that. So bear with me, this is going to, I think this is going to look really cute. So I'm thinking of starting here. Oops, let me go to black so we can see it. So if we start here, and then we just bump over. Now, if you don't feel comfortable just doing that freehand, you can stitch in the ditch if you want. But I think that looks really very cool. But what if we added, right? We added just a little something. So what if we start out with like a little plume and then come up? And again, this is just loops. So very simple. Oh, and I love how that looks. So I do like the addition of those. I'm just going to stick those in here. I would stitch in the ditch around my center applique as well. Oops. So let's do one more over here. And loops are so, whoops, versatile. So I love how that looks. So now what I want to look at is the open space. So let's take a look at that open space. What if we did something so good? Something like that. Don't love that. If instead of working from that, we add, what if we did something like this, where we're kind of using those loops. again. That's okay. I think we can do better. Let's start here and go here. And what if we went in like that? I love how that looks. I think that's a winner, winner, chicken dinner. I really like that. So I'd go with that. And then when you look at your half part over here, you're literally going to do the same thing, but you're going to do just partial, right? A partial one. So you can see that's not super hard at all. And looks really very pretty. Now, if this area is really big, what if you kind of made it a little bit closer in? This might not work. And then in here, you can put in a shape. So any of those are great options. When we're looking at our applique, I would definitely stitch in the ditch. I'm just going to change to white so you can see. I'm going to stitch in the ditch around all my applique, but what if we did something that looks like this? If you wanted to stitch on your applique, that doesn't look very good. So you don't have to stitch on your applique if you don't want to, because I think the stitch in the ditch would be enough. You can always come in and something like that. I feel like that would look really very pretty. Your border. There's a couple different options you can do. We can do like a wishbone border, keeping in line with those loops. That would be very easy. So you would just kind of measure out maybe every inch and do those loops. We could measure out and do something that looks like kind of the same thing we did on the interior. I feel like that would look really pretty. And if for some reason you didn't make them big enough, you can always come in and echo them. I don't know if I really like that, but I like the original. Let's go back. So I do like how that looks in there. So those are a couple different options. Very, very simple and very, very pretty.
Okay, Lisa, that was fantastic. I love the way you did that loopy design. And that seems very doable. I'm new at the long arm and I'm totally intimidated by even doing that much. But I know I'll get there with just a little bit of practice.
Yeah.
So I do have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
Would you do that all freehand or would you do some marking ahead of time? I know you mentioned on the borders, you might do some marking to separate those lines and those loops.
Yeah.
Expanded a little bit. I also love that at the beginning, if everybody zooms back to the beginning of your presentation there, you had the whole quilt done out and drawn over. So if somebody wanted to do that design, go back and stop on that frame and you'll see the entire design that Lisa suggested. And I love it. That's really a beginner design.
Yeah, if you think about it, Sue, it really is, we all know how to draw circles. We all know how to draw loops. And it really is about muscle memory. And so I'm not a huge fan of marking because then you have to get those markings out. And I have had some catastrophes in the past with trying to get markings out. So I mark as little as as possible.
Okay,
So I most likely would do all of that freehand.
beautiful.
I'm not looking for perfection, you
Mhm.
know. If I were looking for perfection, then I would probably say I'd have a computer do it. But it's freehand, and there's supposed to be some changes and some differences in how the loops look and I think that that's really kind of the beauty of it.
I agree.
So I would probably do just the markings in the border. And I would use school chalk because that'll just brush right away.
Perfect. Perfect. That's a
Yeah.
great idea. I was going to ask you about marking. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Good, good. I have a nice little chalk tool that I use, which is filled with iron erase chalk, but it
Hmm.
works right away too. But we use that a lot in our applique marking because it works so well.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay,
Nice.
that's really good to know. All right. Well, would you like to walk us through a design that's a little bit more complex?
I sure would. Let me just again cross our fingers and hope the tech is all working. And let's see if I can get the next video to play. I think there we go.
Excellent.
There we go.
Okay, so we did our beginner one. What if we wanted to do a little bit more on it, right? So let's think, you know me, well, maybe you don't. I love feathers. So what if we did some feathers and I'm looking in my open space. And again, I'm always going to stitch in the ditch around my applique, but so here I'm looking right, oops, gotta change to black. There we go. All right, so here I'm looking here. And I love these heirloom feathers. And I think that looks really pretty. And just so you guys know, I have not pre-planned any of these designs. So you're kind of watching my brain in action. So I like how that looks. What if you didn't want to do that kind of feather? You can also do what I call the flower feather. And that I actually think I like a little bit better. So you can do either one. They both work, obviously. Oh yeah, so pretty. Okay, so we're gonna do one or the other. Now let's look inside of our block, right around that applique. What could we do? So we could definitely do more feathers. So let's just kind of pop them in. So you could do feathers here. But I'm actually thinking I really want to put a circle in here. And so, oh, darn. I lost my layer. Okay, now I'm on layer 2. So I'm gonna do a circle in here. And I'm not gonna stitch through my applique. So I'm gonna show you, I would stop when I got to the applique. So it would look like this. And I'm not gonna do starts and stops. I'm gonna travel around my applique in the ditch. So I love how that looks. So what I'm going to do is I like to echo it as well. So I would come in and do an echo. And that's going to be 1/4 of an inch. That one's they're not going to look perfect, but, and then what if we kind of took that same petal shape didn't like how that looked. Kind of like an S. I don't know if I love this or not. I don't think I love that. I don't think I love that. So let's get rid of that. Let's see. Add some. Know if I love that or not. I don't think there's enough room for that. So I kind of like how that looks. Yeah, I think that that looks really pretty. So I like that. So that's another option for your for this particular quilt. Then I might come in on the interior here. Go to white so you can see. And maybe do similar. Something like that. And then if I wanted to, stitch in the ditch around. Something like that. And around this. Just do some curls.
Lisa, I think I might have just muted you by mistake.
Did it unmute?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm not sure the video is unmuted, but you are unmuted.
Yeah, I think that looks really very pretty.
Good.
Can you hear that?
Very, very
Yeah.
pretty.
It's fine.
As far as
Okay.
your border goes, right, you can do a combination of like some swirls and some of that flower feather, or you could, let's say, do no. Why it doesn't want to. There we go. That's better. All right. Don't know where it went to. Okay. So we could come and do an undulating spine. And then turn this. So you can do one side if you wanted to. And then now I think it looks like it's a fairly thin border. So maybe. Add in some swirls to kind of take up a little bit of the space.
Yeah, that's a 3-inch border right there.
So something like that. I feel like that would look pretty. Or you can also, let's turn this around back up here. You could also do something where you section out something like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of like that actually.
Yeah, that looks excellent. I love that.
I feel like that's really pretty. So that's another option for this particular quilt. Obviously, when you come over into your partials, you are just going to do, the two there, right? So you're just gonna. Oh, I think you guys get the picture. So that's another option for this.
That looks just fantastic. I love it. Okay.
Yeah,
Lisa, I just found out that on Facebook, it's actually showing your screen and then me right next to it. And I've been trying to solve all these technical issues in the background, so I've been all over the place. So I'm so sorry.
I know. No, I honestly have found that like I think everybody watching, everybody that's participating, like we all understand that tech issues happen and don't expect perfection. So
We're
it
seeing, we're
totally,
seeing your beautiful style, and that's what's important. So don't pay any attention to the person in the background doing all the technical problems. I have more questions for you. That just brought up even more questions.
yeah.
First of all, I just love your feathers and the different styles of feathers that you do. That border with the little curly cues at the end, superb. I love it. Now, I'm one of those quilted to death kind of people, and I'm thinking, is that going to be too loose around all the feathers? Do you need to backfill behind those feathers to make those pop out? Or would you just do that amount that you showed there?
So if I were doing it for a customer,
Yeah.
it would not have backfill.
Yeah.
Because that's the time consuming part.
Sure.
But you want to make sure that if you aren't going to do that backfill, that you are taking up the majority of the space that's there.
Okay.
No. Yeah. One of the things I did want to say, and I thought about it as the video was playing, is that on a long arm, the borders, I'm super lazy. And so for me, I don't want to have to mark something ahead of time. I will if I have to, but that's the beauty of sectioning your border, right? Because you can do the top all in one pass, but as you start coming down the sides or up this side and down the one side, it's much easier to execute those sectioned borders versus a border that you want to see travel around the whole thing.
Yeah, I can imagine as a brand new machine quilter, I'm going to find some real challenges with that because you only have so much to work with at one time. So, okay, well, I'm sure I'm going to learn so much from you in your membership where you really go through all aspects of machine quilting. I even saw a class on binding on your long arm inside the membership. So I can't wait to learn those techniques as well.
Yeah.
I really feel as though the community is such a valuable piece of my membership, and I'm sure it will be from yours, where you can maybe draw some of these ideas and put it out there and see if people can give you some feedback. Speaking of which, what are you using to draw on these videos?
So it's an iPad specific program called Procreate.
Okay.
And I am by far not an expert in it, as you can see in the videos, but it gets the job done.
It's a tool,
so
right?
yeah, exactly. It's wonderful. I do want to also take note and say that my membership, which used to be $24.97 a month, which is a steal at that, I literally just dropped it to $9.97 a month.
My God,
like
that's unbelievable.
Crazy, I know. My business coach was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just like it weighed on me. It was heavy on my heart for months, and I just finally said, you know what? I'm just gonna do it."
Wow.
And I'm
What
so very
value
glad
for
that I
that
did.
price. That's just
Yeah.
amazing. All right. We'll talk about that a little bit later too, because you would have some comparing to do. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we're talking about your program. Now, I got into your program because I did one of your 3-day boot camps. Can you tell me when the next one might be that people could get involved with?
Sure. So I will be launching my signature program, which is Quilters Groove Design Academy, in the fall. So that will probably be in September. Wow. And typically I like to do those boot camps right before the opening of the membership or the class. And so I'm thinking late August, beginning of September for the next 3-day boot camp.
Okay,
and they're
right now
normally
your
about
membership is open. Right now, your membership is open.
My membership is open all the time, but I do like to have official launches, a couple times a year, just to be able to do the boot camp so people can see what my teaching style is like and whether they, they want to invest in that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I took
Yeah.
boot camp and it was wonderful. And I think that was also a very low price. Yeah.
1997.
Great value for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful. Okay, are you ready to tackle the Quilt It to Death version?
Oh, well, Susan, that is my jam. I have spatial issues, so I know that it's evenly quilted if it's all quilted. So I'm going to show you my version of the quilted to death one. So here we go. Let's cross our fingers for tech again and see if, oh, yikes. There we go.
Alrighty, so I showed you the beginner. I showed you kind of an intermediate, and now I'm going to show you like the quilted to death. Uses a little bit more rulers. Anyway, let's get started. And I kind of use the center, the center of this shape. And you just kind of want to be consistent throughout. So I feel like something like that would be pretty. So I like how that looks. I feel like I love little circles. Sometimes they just add quite a bit. Add some feathers and see. Let's try. I'm going to pull them all the way up and fill in this space. Do something like that. Kind of like that. Like that, but I'm thinking, what if we did kind of a graduating? Something like that. I think that's gonna, where it just kind of gets a little smaller. And there's some space above. I think I'm gonna go with that. So I want to tell you that if, like, part of it's choosing the right rulers. And if you aren't familiar with that, that's something that a lot of times it takes a little bit of practice. And just really trusting your instincts and going with what looks good to you. So for this one right here, you want something that's not too deep that it's going to dip down into your applique. So just make sure that you are considering all of that when you're choosing those rulers. And before you stitch, make sure that it's going to work. Nothing worse than having to pull out the seam ripper. Now, there's space above it, and I'm thinking that I would actually, depending upon how much space is actually there, once it's truly quilted, I would probably echo quilt and then do some fill in that area, and I would stipple. Now, all of my applique is going to get stitched in the ditch, and I think because everything else is going to be quilted to death, I don't think I'm going to quilt anything on the applique, which is what I did. You know, I did stitch on the applique on the other ones. So I'm just going to put in another one so we can kind of get a good feel for how it's going to look. If you want to get really precise, as far as placing these arcs, I'm going to pull over and do it over here. You can put in a circle and use the circle where the circle intersects. And I'll show you how that's going to look. But that way you're working off of that, your middle of your block.
Mhm.
And it's all going to be the same. This might not look back, and let's get rid of that layer. So you can see, do you know what I mean? So you can do it that way. And on the actual quilt, I probably would be doing it that way, just so that I am a little bit more precise versus just eyeballing it. So just something to think about as far as helping you with your placements. And we're going to add in our feathers. And if you don't like heirloom feathers, you can use the flower feather, which is what we used in our last one. That's always an option. Do that one very well. Let me get our last one in here. Alrighty, so I do like how that looks. Now let's think about our open white space and what we might want to put in there. So just going to start kind of playing around, and I want to go to, I'll do it right here. That did not look. So for these, I would also be using a ruler to make them as perfect as I could get them. I'm sure I like this. I don't know if I really like that. Let's try something else. I'm looking for something that might give me a little bit of movement. So I could do, I don't know if this would. I don't think this would give us movement, but let's see what it's gonna look like. I like to pull those feathers up to fill that space. You don't have to. You could make it a circular wreath if you wanted to.
Mhm.
Don't love that either. All right, let's try. So one of the things when you do something like this is you have to worry about your center. So there are 8 pieces of thread all coming into the center. So how might we actually quilt it out where we don't have all of that? I would come in and I would, there are 8 pieces.
Sorry,
small
Lisa.
circle.
Good. I was
And
trying
I
to
would
answer some
have-
questions over on Facebook.
Oh.
Now.
No worries.
Something like that. That's going to give movement. So let's go ahead and feather that. And see if we like that. And again, I tried to, so you could feather both sides, right? I could feather this side and this side, but I like how it looks when I just feather the outer portion of the curve.
Mm.
It gives so much movement to the quilt.
So I love how that really gives some movement to the area. Let's, I just want to show it to you if we were to do it with the flower feather, because I think that that would look pretty as well.
Well, Lisa, this is a lot of time.
And you can do it with the
It is.
without the little stem in the middle there.
But then you've got to
I do find
exactly what you want to do.
It saves me time when I move over to actually quilt it, to have an actual plan. I no longer stand and stare and think, what am I going to do here?
Mhm.
Excuse me.
It also, if you step away from your machine for a couple of days and part of it's already rolled up, you don't have to then unroll it to figure out what you quilted at the top if you follow your plan.
Yeah, very smart. Very smart. I don't know why this one reminds me of a seahorse.
It does. It does.
I really appreciate what you're saying about the movement that it brings to the quilt.
Mm-hmm. I think I pull out in the video so you can see all of the options.
Those
Yeah.
are the two. So
Yeah.
they're both very pretty. Alrighty, so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with this one. I
Good
really like
choice.
how that looks. So let's look at the outer portion of the quilt, right? I'm talking about these areas here. So we could do, whoops, oops, a partial circle. And then it would be, see, it would be kind of weird because it goes like that and then it would go like that. So I don't really want to do something like that. So I don't think it's going to look how I want it to look. So I'm thinking if we kind of come in and we do an echo of that area. Like that. And then maybe do 3 circles. And then some straight lines. So why don't we kind of encapsulate those? And then straight lines. They can be 1/4 of an inch. I like the 1/8 of an inch spacing personally. I think that would look good. So I'm gonna go with that. And then in your corner, again, we're gonna do kind of like the echo. And let's see what it would look like if we did.
Mhm.
We could do that. I don't think I like that as much, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And I think maybe just straight lines. I think that would look probably good. So let's do our echo 2 times. And then I'm going to pull the straight lines out this way. And I'm going to tell you why. So you could, if you wanted to, do this. But then you have to be really precise about matching up these right there. And I don't like to have to be that precise. So for me, I feel like it's just easier to pull those out on the diagonal. Like this. So you could do either or, whichever you prefer. So I would do that all the way around. Now, let's draw in this one because that'll help us do our border. I just like to get the look of it. And sometimes it's hard when you don't have the interior done. That's a terrible curve. And then straight line. Okay. So let's look at the border. I'm going to change to white so we can see it. What if we kind of hold this up like this? That might be, or what if we actually use the round shape? So if we did something like that
Mhm.
and that. Don't love that. I don't love how that looks. I'm gonna go back to this. Oops.
It's funny, you really have to trust what your eye is seeing, and if you don't like it, go with that.
Really not having much luck with my curves today.
We happen to have some tools with curves on them that can help.
When you do that, you have to make sure that you stop a 1/4 of an inch in, right? So that you, don't cut off your points with with your binding. So then we have this area here. If we did. I don't love the straight lines. What if we did this? Kind of. And then we could do. I like that. Let's turn this.
I love how that brings the lemon leaf shape out to the outside from the applique.
Like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And then I think in here, I think it would look good if we use the seam as our spine
Mhm, mhm.
and just fill that area on up with some feathers. I think that would look really pretty.
Lisa, I know we're getting
Like
close to our
that.
time, but I'm gonna let you
Yep.
keep going
Corner,
because
I know
we've got
that's
some
gonna be a
questions
lot.
for you over on Facebook.
Okay,
So
let me
if
look. We only have about 5 more minutes.
Perfect.
Back here for a second, because this is our corner. I gotta do that better.
It's just fascinating for me to watch your thought process as we do this. Because, you know, we all think we're going to do it perfectly the first time. And there's a whole process that goes into deciding what looks good. And that's only,
100%.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
training your eye, right?
Mhm.
Here.
So you have to take that time to train your eye and know what's going to work.
Yeah. And really trust what you like, what looks good to you. And not worry about what anybody else might think or try and emulate someone else's style.
Yes, I love that.
And then here would be, we could bring that all the way out like that.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So one of the things that I like about it, just so you know, is I'm pulling like this shape, right, from our applique out into the quilting portion of our border. So I really do like that. And while we're not really using this shape, I don't know, where did my white go? That's not really white. Back to black. And while we're not really using this shape here, it's similar as far as like that, but we are using this. We're pulling that out into our border. So I do like to reuse and use the same shapes. So we've got some space above. And I think that just some straight line quilting here would work. Now, I do want to just talk a little bit about how I would kind of choose my thread colors for this. So the interior, I am going to use something that matches that background, maybe one shade lighter or one shade darker, so that you can actually see it. I would then, in this area behind that small circle, I would stipple that. So how that would look is I would go in and stitch my circle and then fill in around it. So it's not like a whole bunch of starts and stops.
Okay.
When I
My
execute
questions.
the
Yeah.
the ruler work around this, where I can, I will travel in either a previously stitched line or in the ditch. It does not always work, and sometimes I do have a lot of starts and stops, but I'm not overly concerned with that. As far as the border and figuring out what color to use, I would have to pull, because it's a gradient. It's either going to be a purple or blue, most likely. I would have to pull a whole bunch to see what is actually you're going to see on each of them equally. And then I would choose that, because I don't want something that's going to scream on the purple and blend with the blue, or scream on the blue and blend with the purple. So I would have to lay out all of my thread colors and figure out, and it could very well be that what's going to look best is maybe a very light neutral, because the colors are a little darker, and you would actually see that equally on everything. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, so then I just talked to, yeah. Let me get back to my other screen.
Yeah, we'll come back to you. That is just fabulous. You know, the quilted to death version is always my favorite, and I love feathers. It's just something it's near and dear to my heart. Being a hand quilter from years back, feathers were always an important motif in my quilts. So I love that third level, and I dream of getting there someday, Lisa.
You will.
Well, I
will.
want to welcome everybody that's over on Facebook, and I want to apologize that it got posted to my personal page instead of my business page. I'll go share that as soon as we're done. I've already shared it. It'll just pop up. So we do have Beverly Henyon over here, and we have Brenda Stout over on my personal page. We have Irene Henyon. Bev has a question for you.
Sure.
When you do the design in Procreate, is that just for you, or do you have anything that will transfer that to your long arm and do a computerized version of what you've drawn?
Don't I wish? No, it is just solely my roadmap, and I just keep it by my machine as I'm quilting to reference. The Procreate does not digitize the design. I wish the digitizing process were as easy as drawing it like that. But it is not.
Okay.
So,
and do you have a computer on your machine?
I actually do. It has not been turned on in probably about 4 years.
Your passion is this beautiful handwork.
Yeah, I mainly had it for doing customer all over designs, because I kind of found that they were repetitive and boring to me. So if I could let the computer do that, I could be doing some other stuff at the same time. So I do have it. I just don't really use it.
Okay, excellent. And let's see, would you use a variegated thread on that border?
So I'm not a huge fan of variegated threads. And the reason I'm not is that they play hide and seek. Yes. So you can't determine where the color is going to land. And so you might see it in the blue. Do you know what I mean? Bits and pieces.
Yes.
And so your eye doesn't see the whole design. So if I'm using a variegated thread, I'm actually going to be using it in a solid color.
Yeah. Like on the white.
You know, like I'll use it in the white, or I'll use it in black.
Yeah.
So it doesn't play hide and seek.
That's great to know. Wonderful. Well, I am so thrilled that you have been here to inspire me and get me all excited about quilting my Gradations quilts. Now, you can see I've got several of them. I have 3 right now that need to be quilted, so we'll talk about that later. I'm so inspired that even the beginner version was absolutely beautiful, and it's something that I'd love to see quilted out. But of course, my goal is to get to be as good as you are and to be able to do those beautiful feathers. So I am so excited to belong to your membership. Tell us the name of the membership again, because it did change.
Mhm. Yep. So it went from Quilters Groove Tribe to Quilters Groove Creative Design Society.
Okay.
I feel like it just fits it better.
Yeah.
It's more descriptive. Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
more me.
And they can, my followers, they're watching you today. They can find you at lisahcalle.com. I did put that in the comments. So if you're looking for
Mhm.
Lisa's website, it's lisahcalle.com. And you'll find all the information about your Quilters Creative Design Society right there. And
Mhm.
you can also sign up for Lisa's newsletter. Or do you
Yeah.
put out a newsletter, or is that just more information about your courses when they come out, your signature course?
Yeah. So I try to at least once a month, send out a newsletter. I try most of the time I'm pointing out maybe somebody else's program or class or something. And then every once in a while I'll throw up, some free videos and things
Oh,
like that. So
it's a
I do
great
try, but
thing. Yeah,
yeah,
thing to
but
get
it
on
also
the
is,
mailing list. Yeah.
yeah, and it's informative. So when I do have new classes that I'm launching, I'll put that in there as well.
Terrific. Well, Lisa, this has been so much fun. And I tell you what, I'm going to end the meeting now. We're just a little bit over time, but that was perfect. It was so much great information. I can't wait to play with that quilt and to talk to you more about some of the other quilts that I have to work on. I'll submit something for the
Yeah,
decision
definitely.
dilemma. And I can't wait to get into your membership and share my ideas with the community and get some feedback and just to continue to learn more about quilting. Now, I do have one more question for you. I just got a long arm, but not everybody has one. These
Yeah,
techniques can all be applied to your domestic machine as well, correct?
correct.
Right. So you
Correct.
don't need to have a
Yeah,
long arm to join your society.
right. The majority of what I teach is applicable to both long arm and domestic. And one of the things that I want to say is that we go and we take classes on specific things: feathers, ferns, flowers, rulers. The thing that I have found the most is that people don't struggle with that. They struggle with, okay, I know all of this. How do I bring it all together into designing for my quilt? And that's kind of like where I come in, because that is what I really enjoy teaching.
Hence putting that right front in the name right there, the Design Society. So I
Yeah.
love that, Lisa. I know I'm going to learn so much from you. I want to thank
Yay.
you for sharing your expertise here with us today. It's been so much fun, and I can't wait to collaborate a little bit with you. I think we're going to.
Yeah, I'm excited.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
having me.
Lisa. So nice to see you today. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.